did Chris Clenshaw revive EastEnders or did he destroy it? Not my words, the words of our titleist.
Me.
Yeah, the captain.
It's always me.
The captain.
I do everything around here.
So yeah, did he revive it? Well, I can briefly go into what happened before Chris Crenshaw really took over. See, EastEnders was in a weird period because obviously, a lot of shows were in a weird period because obviously I'm going to count from 2020. I'm not going to do from 2019. I'm also just going to do from the start of this decade. So roughly in 2020 there was a boat crash, and then obviously you know what happened. The coronavirus came and everything had to shut down, and yeah, blah 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 blah. You get what I mean. And then obviously they came back. A lot of storylines were mucked because of the pandemic, and then a lot of people just became main characters that shouldn't have become main characters. Like Ray Atkins became a main character, which turned a lot of people off the soap. I'm specifically looking at Ash. No one can see me looking at Ash.
Yeah, he was yeah, at this point in time, Gray Atkins, Ben Mitchell, Whitney, three of the main characters of that John Sen, Kate Oates kind of weird era. And I think the biggest problem of that time, because he was announced to be executive producer in November 2021, first took over his first episodes credited were in June 2022. And at that time, I described the show as it was so stuck on crime. It was so stuck on having this weird, gritty, criminal edge to it, which I think a lot of soaps do fall into, because you do realize that some of the biggest storylines are serial killer storylines, murder storylines, deaths, tragedy. So it's kind of easier to have a lot of those characters sticking around. But at some point, you get sick of seeing all the crime because it kind of desensitizes you to everything. It's kind of like, what's Ben doing this time? He's doing some human trafficking in a video game. He's doing some really dodgy crime stuff now. Yeah, but Ben Mitchell's still a tragic character though, right? Yeah. You still love him, right? Yeah. It's... Oh, not again. Not again. They're doing it again. And it's a thing that keeps happening, especially currently, and as of recording, Coronation Street is kind of stuck in that, yes, we're a crime show, guys. We love crime. Some of our main characters are police officers. Isn't that really, really fun? And it's like, guys, if we wanted to see a fucking crime soap, the bill would still be on TV and wouldn't be axed. It didn't fucking work, did it? It didn't work. So nobody wants this at this point in time. And that's what I argue Chris Clenshaw pretty much figured out fairly early on. But he still had to deal with, the bulk of 2022, which arguably, for me, was a pretty shoddy year in the grand scheme of things. A lot of stuff did come off the boil in a sense, because you had the slow burn, Mick, Linda, Janine. You still had... Oh, bloody... What was even happening in 2022? Well, Gray was gone at this point, right?
I can run.
Or was this the Chelsea... Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So obviously at the end of 2021, I'm only remembering this bit because we recently did the Christmas of that year. Chelsea married Gray Atkins, and then Whitney sent her a 4chan post that... what was she called? Oh, bloody hell.
Chantal's abuse.
Yeah, Chantal's
her
abuse.
Her forum post, so it's showing how abusive Gray was.
Yeah, and then obviously the revelation found that would have been the 37th, I believe, anniversary. And
roughly, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's where Gray Atkins obviously leaves, tries to kill Whitney. He goes in a little bobby car, and a little police car. He leaves the show. Never really mentioned again, except for when Chelsea makes bad decisions with men. She goes, just like Gray.
That's really harsh, but fair enough.
It's
not wrong.
Just any bad man she sees, she's like, you're like Gray, aren't you? Bloody hell, trying to kill me, bloody. I see what you're doing. It's like, no, I'm literally, you've spilled apple juice down your skirt. I'm trying to help you here. Just leave me alone. And then, so obviously we continue on. And then we have my favourite My favourite. I know it's not funny. Then we get to the Keeble stuff that happens in later 2022, leading into 2023. And then obviously the big revelation of 2022 is, well, Nick's final episode, which has...
I mean, you also had the Keeble stuff, which did have the first real stroke of the brilliance of having the original Mitchell flashback episode, which that stuff was very good. But the Keeble stuff building up to it, cheeks. If there was a final nail in the coffin for the crime stuff in EastEnders, it was that Keeble storyline. They immediately went, "Oh wow, that was rough, wasn't it?" Yes, it was awful. Yeah, not doing that anymore. It was. I hated the Keeble stuff. It's bloody miserable.
Yeah, and as I was saying, so continuing on, my favourite bit is Shirley interrogating Scarlett, like being like, just tell them, and Scarlett's like, leave me alone, Shirley. And Linda obviously tells her, and then you get the Janine bit where it's like, she's just cray in the brain, you know, she's just mental.
Insane in the membrane.
Yeah, insane in the membrane. Just don't listen to her. She's mental health problems. Leave her alone. And then obviously she steals the passports. You know where this goes. This is a classic Watching Walford thing.
Yep, the old classic. Linda yanks the car over the cliff. Mick Carter's exit and with his own theme to build a home, which was my song of the year, and it was my depressed song of the year. And I was fuming because I don't mind the episode as much. I don't even remember what I ranked it in the Christmas rankings. I think it ended up being fairly higher in comparison because there was a lot of slop in the 2010s. But I was fuming at the time, and obviously that spurred on us to do this. And then you get to 2023, which, you know, that was when the tides were turning. They were going, because we did have some awful stuff. Like we did have Emma because we had Lola's death, which was a fairly 2022 into 2023, her slow death and demise, some really cool, poignant episodes. You also have Emma scaring a child, Lola's mum, another classic of the channel that no one cares about anymore because it's 2 years ago. And then you get Cindy's return, you get the introduction of the Knights. What else happens in 2023?
You get you forgot the most famous bit on the 38th anniversary. The 38th. We get the lovely introduction of the Six in the flash forward, the Christmas that happens, and then we basically did that entire week, and we got banned off YouTube for a few days, which was funny.
Yeah, I done it. Yeah. We were just uploading a lot of videos, and YouTube's like, bloody hell, get him out! You know, like a shepherd with a crook, just bloody hell.
And then, obviously, continuing on, you get the Theo Hawthorne, you get Emma threatening a child, which still lives on in Watching Walford, classic history.
It's in the Hall of Fame.
It's in the lore of Watching Walford, that's the thing. It's in the lore of it. And then, obviously, continuing on, you get Theo Hawthorne, who was my boy. He was one of my favourites. I know everyone hated him, and he was quickly shelved in December 2023. Is also
Suki and Eve. Sorry.
Just because I was building up for something. You get the first ever short stint Clenshaw. You get Ryan Malloy, first short stint Clenshaw. And then
set everything in motion, honestly, somehow.
Yeah, and then Lily obviously is pregnant. Jesus, that was Jesus.
Which they never addressed. They never addressed Lily's teenage pregnancy. How dare they? It's all right.
Then as you mentioned, Eve and Suki. Nish,
even Suki's love, the Six, Nish Panasar, a lot of really good stuff. The introduction of Reese. Dot's funeral, and then you have the Six going into this previous year where you have the Six aftermath. You have George and Eddie Knight and Gloria. You have the escalation of Reese. You have Cindy playing the victim despite being the only person who everybody hates. But in general, still was fairly fluid throughout. And then kind of a bit towards the end of 2024, you start to get some of the teasing issues because it's the Six was really good. And the Six, 2023 was probably still my favourite Christmas episode. But now in retrospect, the episode's still great. The aftermath is not. Like the 6 aftermath just pitted out really slowly, and it's quite depressing. Like it had so much promise, and it had the flash forward, which wasn't revolutionary because Hollyoaks had done it multiple times before. But obviously not to as great effect. But you kind of then towards the end, but this is still after a fairly sizable run. Like 2022 was okay. 2023 was probably the best year of EastEnders in a long time. And then 2024, it was decent. It wasn't as must-see as 2023. And then the start to 2025 was absolute fucking shit until the week before the anniversary week, where it suddenly went, oh, this is great. Love this. More of this. And obviously he left at the. He's now in the process of leaving. But yeah, no, sorry.
I think how I want to do this is go through what I think the duds are first, and then we'll cut to Ash, and he can do what he thinks the duds are first, and then I'll go through the positives, and then Ash can go through his positives. If there's anything where we kind of connect in the middle, we will obviously agree to agree and disagree to agree, and disagree to disagree. You know, the usual.
It's covering all the bases.
Next, so starting off with my first dud, I'm counting 2022, but I'm counting it in a slight distance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like at the end of the day, there's only so much you could do because he may have been overseen before, but his first credited episodes are like in June. So you've already missed out a bunch of the year. They've set the scenes of what the storylines are going to be. You can't just go, none of that's happening.
I think, the first dud, in my opinion, is now. See, I feel bad calling this a dud because he had to do what the circumstances had to do because obviously the actors passed earlier that year. But Dot's funeral, it's the first dud. It just, I'm putting it out there. Like it's like putting a broken-legged horse out the pasture. Like he's already in pain. Just do it already. Like it's just. Yeah. It's the circumstances that, obviously June Brown passed, so you couldn't really do much with it. But yeah, it's just... And
it's not like they could have done anything either. Like, at the end of the day, she left of her own accord. She, unless they genuinely rolled out the red carpet treatment fully 100% the way, there's only so much she could have done to tempt her back. She decided she was never coming back due to actions that weren't his. But yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously that leads to the Reese stuff. The start of the Reese stuff was alright, and then I think that's the second dud, is just the roller coaster of Reese. If you don't
I think... Oh, no, sorry.
No. Do you have anything to say?
It's just... I think, just to kind of take that point as well, I think... Chris Clenshaw had a problem with kind of... I know it's been like a subreddit stickling point. I obviously, we're a bit more fair than the subreddit at most times. He had a problem where he had his framework and he had his long-term planning of what he wanted to do. But throughout, there were times where it felt like the long-term planning didn't necessarily adjust for how people reacted. Because... But yeah, it just kind of... It felt like Chris Clenshaw didn't really adapt his story. Because what is a good praise point, which we'll get into later, is he did have long-term plans of how he wanted the characters to go and the ramifications and the long-term story that he wanted to tell. But at some point, it started to feel like Chris Clenshaw didn't really adjust the long-term plans with how they were being perceived. Like Nish, for example. Nish had a really good introduction, really good year. And then he was probably the main suspect to die at Christmas. He was the main suspect to be killed in the 6th, and they didn't do that. They went for Keanu. But then, because he didn't die at Christmas, in 2024, he just exists like a bad smell. And it went, like I say, it went on too long, essentially. And you could say the same for the Reese stuff. You could say the same for a whole lot of things. That it just some of it went on too long. Like the Six Aftermath, it went on too long, and we didn't really get a satisfying conclusion. Like sometimes he didn't know when was the right time to end things, and that's kind of why, like, that's why there was a big short of me saying this was the golden era that never was a Chris Clenshaw, simply because he wrapped up most of the main stuff into Christmas 2024 being who like Cindy's like demise in a way of who attacked Cindy, which everybody's like, is this really a Christmas storyline though? And then the Christmas to the week before the anniversary was awful. So like, he didn't seem to adjust for what people thought. Obviously, he still did a lot of really positive work in that time, but I do think the lack of adapting his long-term plans probably did have a knock-on effect, as it, a lot of us just kind of got a bit fed up with how stories went.
Yeah, I think, obviously I'm just going to preference, my internet died for a split second, so I had to like pause and do it. So Ash's point's a bit choppy, that's the preference there. He didn't just get stage fright. But yeah, continuing on. You back? Yeah. Continuing on. Yep. They really don't want us to talk about Chris Clenshaw, do they? They don't. Continuing on. I want to say his longevity of like doing long-term storylines, it can work. It's just, when do you feel like it's the cutting off point? Because everyone loves a long-term storyline. But like, is 2 years good enough? Is 3 years good enough? Is 5 years too much? Is 6 years too much? Is 10 years too long? It's just, it depends. It needs to have a cut off point. It can't just be, oh wow, we seen Nish going out in a cop car, fireworks are going off, he's back, wow, and nothing else is done about it. So the 6 is kind of just left dwindling there.
Yeah, and like, there's only, like I said, there is typically a right time as to when you would end it, but like the Sonya restuffed, how did Debbie got killed in July? How did it still go to February 2025, man? How? Like, that's and it's not to say it's a bad thing, because hey, long-term planning is great. Love long-term planning. In most mediums, fantastic. It's what you want to see. You want to have a vision and you want to follow that vision. It's fantastic. It's great. But when you follow a vision so strictly, at the end of the day, maybe you kind of get lost in the source and you don't fully know when's the right time to pull the trigger on it.
I think the next point I'm just going to bring up, because we might as well talk about him as another cotton of the Chris Clenshaw era, is Mr. Reese Caldwell Fowler Jackson. Just putting all the preferences out there. Don't know what Debbie's was, so yeah. Caldwell, I guess so. So yeah, Reese. I'll briefly run through Reese, because I've done it twice. I'll do it thrice. So who is Reese? Well, Reese was introduced at Dot's funeral. Now, if you don't know, Dot's funeral took place in 2022. So technically, and I'm going to put this out, technically, Ian Beale has appeared in every year of EastEnders. No one else has done that. Because he only had one episode in 2022, but he still appeared. So he has appeared in every single year. Someone's got to fact check me and go, actually, Phil has done it. But yeah, to my knowledge. But anyways, continuing on. Reese was introduced, and Reese, he was just a quirky guy. He was a quirky guy at the start, a bit anxious. Maybe he was a bit autistic. We don't know. And then he had a secret. He had a secret. That secret was his wife. He had a wife. And Rocky, which is ironic, and I'll get to that in a minute, Rocky just kind of went, mate, what are you playing at? And Reese went, leave me alone. And Rocky went, what are you playing at? There's something there's something fishy here. And Reese just went, leave me alone. And then it's like, oh, I have a wife. Then Reese, and then Sonya threw him out. But at the end, Sonya just went, he has a wife. I'm bisexual. We can work it, workshop it. She didn't obviously say it like that, but that's how I interpreted it. Just her debating the matter of the two goods. Continuing on, so he has a wife. His wife's in a comatose state, and obviously she needs care, because even if you have free healthcare, these machines are not going to pay themselves. You need someone to pay these machines.
Yeah, she needs some serious. She needs some serious machines to keep her alive.
Yes, and basically Reese was given money by you and Debbie that we found out later on. And that
Debbie's parents.
Debbie's parents, thank you. And they were basically funding Reese to pay for Debbie's healthcare. And Reese went, Sonia, you want to have a baby? And Sonia went, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Reese went, all right.
Bankrolling months and trials of IVF. It's like 3 or 4 like attempts. And, in the end, she does get pregnant. But the money troubles, they just get a bit too much. And that's how Reese got a little bit trigger happy with a pillow, leading for Debbie's demise, her death, which was in July 2024. And then it spiraled into a man increasingly desperate to hide his actions, where he didn't admit the truth, so let Sonia go to prison. He locked up her sister Bianca in a storage unit for months. And and in the end, it all came to a head in the anniversary as Reese took a bathtub to the bonce and Sonia had baby Julia.
I haven't got to find this out, so I don't like saying if it was realistic, because obviously it's a soap, it's round up to 10. But in any world, right, I know like Bianca knew he was a killer. I don't know if is he a serial killer or is he just a killer?
He's just a killer. He only killed one person.
Yeah. So like obviously he's a killer. I know he's like a fragile man. He's a bit scary. He's not really scary. He's just like timid. But you knew he's a murderer. Why would you go? Bloody hell! If the pillow to lock up, I'm just gonna follow you there. Nothing bad can happen there. It's like
and that's the general bit. Is I feel like, and this is kind of stuff you can't really do. You can't really. It's not really his fault that it happened, but we also did get a lot of very like high profile breaks from characters at times where it's like, and Sonia's leaving for about 4 months now. It's like, what? And Bianca's off again. So, okay. Yeah. Sharon, the person whose husband was killed on Christmas, she's not seen for about 4 months. Like, there was some Nish has just vanished at times, and he comes back every now and then. He was kind of played with a lot of really unfortunate like break timings, which kind of meant that he had to stretch everything out a lot more. But just the Reese storyline in general, like even with the exit, because the exit, it is probably one of the funniest intentional, it was probably one of the most intentionally funny soap deaths of all time. It's great. It describes Reese's storyline, his character, everything that happened. Because in the end, he's not really a threat. He's just a bit of a weirdo who's clinging on for dear life. And then he gets hit by a bath. Gold. Absolute gold. But even with that outcome, it still doesn't really make up for all of the time we had to endure everything about the Reese stuff.
I just because we've done Reese to death. Like literally, we've done him to death.
Yeah, I'm fed up talking about him.
But
Thank God he's done.
Yeah, but the one thing that I find funny in all of Reese's story, it's just David Wicks going up to Reese going, "You should take a holiday, mate." And Reese went, "Thanks, I will." He just goes on a holiday.
Yeah.
It's like, he just does it. Like how convincing is that? I think you should go on a holiday, mate. Fair enough. I'm going to go see the mountains. Let's go. I'm going to see Wank Mountain in Germany.
I suppose just if we do like one more con and then we get into the good.
Yeah.
Where do you reckon we head with this next con?
It's up to you.
I need some thinking time to really encapsulate. I mean, you have some of the stuff where it's like under promise but really undone. You could kind of take an angle that some of the returns weren't really worthwhile. You could argue that Shirley being like announced to return but never did. God, I don't even know. I don't even know where to go with this one. Help me out.
Is it just return, like under delivering returns? Is your point?
No, I don't think so. I just don't know where to go with this next like con. At the end of the day.
Well, I guess it's a con and it's a pro. And whatever way you want to look at it, it's a 50-50 coin, so like either way, it's heads or tails. The short stint returns, where the ones where you wanted it to be a bit longer or shorter, and the ones you wanted to be a bit shorter are kind of a bit longer in a sense. And just
I suppose also just generally we could kind of There was also a lot of like untapped stuff that probably could have been explored more. Because so like, oh, we're like, obviously this is like a subreddit sticking point that I don't really care about personally. But like so I'd say, oh, Shirley's come back. Yeah, great, love Shirley. Woo. Because Clenshaw did have a tendency to bring in a character, and obviously it's how it works. And so you bring in a character with a really big edge, and then suddenly, oh, they're not that bad as you thought they were, and then they sit around on the sidelines and do fuck all for about 6 months, and then suddenly now's the storyline. Like now's the big storyline, and it's kind of like it comes and goes. An absence of set characters. Sometimes it felt like he had a tendency to take a character, completely kill any of their previous history that was still going up to that point, like Bianca with Terry. Just kind of like knotting off some of this potential like future drama, knotting off some of the past to just kind of change the story a little bit, and then like dumping them in the end. But just to fully round that point out, though, it kind of, and also like, yeah, you still had the Lily's teenage pregnancy. She's gonna be a big, huge storyline. We're gonna do a really big piece on this, and we didn't, I didn't really want to see how deep they were gonna go because it's teenage pregnancy. We've all seen it before on soaps many different times. You had the Kat and Alfie and Tommy abuse, which was like, oh, this is going to be really big. And, Kat's finally getting a storyline, guys. She's finally getting this storyline. Never mind. It just, some of the stuff was overpromised and underdelivered, which is perfectly reasonable. Every era has its setbacks. But yeah, this was just played with, oh, we're going to do this really cool big thing. Never mind. We don't want to do that anymore because we have other things to do. Like, I suppose also just to finally, I also think that the 2024 was kind of marred by the fact that the 6 was the really exciting big stuff. And with how popular and how successful the 6 stuff was building into Christmas, watching a lot of 2024 just went, oh, fuck off, Billy. What about this? What about the 6? And then it created a really weird balance with the fans where you want to see what's happening and you want to see the storylines progress, but mostly you're there because the 6 and you want to see if they get found out. It kind of set the show at odds of each other.
Yeah, but I think now it's time to do the positives. We've done all the negatives. I know I'm going to kick this off by saying the returns that really and giving characters spotlights that would never really get spotlights in previous eras, like Yolanda. I know people are going to debate me on this. Penny, in a sense. Penny was literally introduced being like, I'm Jack's daughter, and then she's gone in 2 weeks.
I'm here because we killed off Abby years ago. Yay!
To be honest, and you can fight me on this, I think she's better than Abby. I'm going to be honest.
Disagree, but, we can agree to disagree. I mean,
she's getting a shepherd's hook. How dare you?
I mean, look, there's a list of all of the returns that happened under Chris Clenshaw. I'm going to read them all. Alfie Moon, Yolanda Truman, Lauren Branning, Bianca Jackson, Jane Beale, Chrissy Watts, David Wicks, Ruby Allen, Mickey Miller, Nigel Bates, Minty Peterson, Gary Hobbs, Grant Mitchell, Bex Fowler, and Angie Watts. And then recasting, like a good couple of recasts, but a lot of them are kind of fair enough. The recast of Amy Mitchell, who had some of the best teenager storylines in general. Freddie Slater, Elaine Peacock, Penny Branning, Vicky Fowler, handling the exits of Mick Carter and Martin Fowler, reintroducing Cindy Beale. Like, that's an absolute huge list of returns.
Did you include
now?
Ryan
Admittedly, I don't know if he was included, but yeah, like a lot of very cool short. We dubbed him Short Stint Clenshaw simply because it's like, he's going to be back for a week. Okay, fair enough.
My favorite thing.
The good thing is he did bring them back for a week. And they're the main star of that week, and suddenly it's like, whoa, what? David Wicks? He's not been seen in years. He's not been seen like a decade. Fucking hell. I love David Wicks. This is great. You're playing on all the history, And then by the end of the week, you're going, oh no, David, don't go. I want to see you back. And it was done. It was done with a bunch of characters who we probably never thought we'd see again, right? Characters we never thought we'd ever really care to see. Like Jane. Who the fuck knew Jane was going to come back? She only came back for a week, but perfect in the Cindy, Bobby, Ian, Peter drama. Fucking whoa. Update what she's with Masood now. They're living in the Cotswolds, living the best life.
Can I just say, you know, my favourite thing is about Jane? I love how Cindy gave out to Ian because she thought Ian was cheating on her with Jane. But yeah, Cindy, meanwhile, is in the cupboard cheating on Ian with Junior Knight. It's like, how dare you stab that person? I know I stabbed his brother, but how dare you stab him? You're the wrong one. It's just, it was so good.
Yes. But like, still re-establishing some of these characters. You know, Nigel back on the show after what, like 25 years, like 20 odd years at least. You bring back Yolande, who was axed because there wasn't the writers didn't have any storyline ideas for her. Then you bring her back and you give the really powerful sexual assault storyline, and now she's everybody's nan. She's filling that big matriarch role on the show, which is like, considering how she left and how she returned, fucking light and day. It's incredible. But then even like just the small ones, you have like Chrissy Watts, who people never thought come back, have her there for a week, have some cool scenes with Sharon, bring back some history with Den, and then have her and Danny Moon. I think, is it Danny Moon? Regardless, one of them. I don't remember. He was only there for an episode. David Wicks, Ruby Allen, still maybe not the best stuff she's had, but still. But like these characters who probably some of them would never have come back. And even the small hints, like you get Mickey Miller, you get the updates to what the Millers are doing. You get Minty and Gary as the duo to come back for Billy's wedding. And I suppose we can also just angle it in its same way, is he also had some really, really good characters that were only there for like 10 episodes. But because they were spaced out dramatically, whoa, incredible. Gloria Knight, George's mum, in the Eddie and George storyline, where it was revealed that Eddie is racist and killed George's biological dad. And it's a really good scene about like race and, you know, Gina and Anna talking about how Anna is white passing and, you know, how much easier Gina kind of resents her because of how much her life seems different. Like, you know, oh, you just try fit in. You don't have to go through all what I went through. And like, you bring Gloria, who, yes, did enable some of these bad decisions. She did enable Eddie Knight in a way, but still, in the end, she still wanted George to be happy and wanted George to find like his mum. But then dying, which had a lot of people crying.
I just do want to briefly say on Eddie Knight, I think if you have to go watch any episode of Chris Clenshaw's era, and I'll probably do it at the end, the top that I would recommend, I definitely recommend the episode where it's Eddie Knight and George Knight face to face, and like George has a moment where he's like, "Do you love me, Dad?" And like he puts his hand out to him, Eddie goes to accept it, and then Eddie just
snaps out of it,
and then he goes, "Get your filthy hands off me!" And Jesus Christ!
Because it's the entire episode's build into this big point of like, oh, you know, George, he still wants to love his dad even through all the harsh treatment he had, and is that racist, or was it just tough love? Is it just tough love? He was just a big bad. But then you get the moment where it's like, okay, we're finally gonna see if Eddie Knight truly is a big racist, and then suddenly it's the moment of like, George tries to comfort him, and it's like, oh, this is nice. Oh, get your hands off me. Boom, landed immediately. Holy shit, this is all true. You have bollocks. Who's Billy's dad?
Stevie
Mitchell, incredible. Alan Ford, legendary actor. Maybe not legendary, but you know, for EastEnders, it's an absolute scalp. Does about 20 episodes. Establishes this new family of Mitchells, which haven't really seen their full potential unlocked yet, admittedly. but still, like, Stevie was probably the most likable character they introduced. And just so many good moments. And also, like, had a relationship with Big Mo, and they were actually having a proper relations, which was great. Like,
They were shagging.
Stevie, yeah, they were laying pipe. Stevie and Mo absolutely fiending in them sheets. But like, you know, just so many good, memorable moments, just from like some really smartly placed, like one episode here, one episode there, couple episodes this week, and you like space it out over time, and it feels like you've known him for months. And then suddenly, oh, he's got to leave, and it's like, oh, man, this is really sad. But most people were probably like, oh, I want him back. And I don't know if we'll ever get Stevie Mitchell back. But fuck me, was that time we spent with him absolutely fantastic.
It's the kind of thing, just briefly to speak on Stevie, if you don't mind. It's the kind of genius where I wouldn't bring him back, just simply because I'd be afraid of seeing. No offense to Ben Wadey, we're going to do a video like our wish list of like what we want back and stuff. But I wouldn't bring Stevie back just because I'm scared they might take him in a different direction. It's that kind of character where he's too good. You're afraid that like he could be absolutely Michelle
I think
Fowler.
You could easily get overexposed.
Yeah,
you could easily get overexposed if you use him too much.
But Alan Ford was fantastic. I remember watching him in Snatch and I fell in love with him because he just plays a gangster in any role he's in. Literally, yes. If you watch any role Alan Ford's in,
Cockneys and Zombies, absolute classic.
So yeah, Stevie being there, and then obviously just to run through it, and then I think Stevie goes to hospital. Yeah, someone goes to hospital, and that's where we get the introduction of the other Mitchells, Teddy, Barney, and Harry. Now, obviously, their full potential hasn't been unlocked yet. It's the kind of thing you can't make a family a main character. You can try, but you run into the problem of fatigue where they're overexposed, and then basically like Whitney, Ben, and Gray in 4 years ago. Like, it's just that kind of thing. So yeah, their full potential hasn't been unlocked, but Jesus, worth their introduction great. They show up and then they're like, "Oh, who are you? We're Billy. I'm Billy's brother." And then what's that word I'm looking for? Which then leads to Phil becoming depressed because he's no longer the head of the family because Teddy's telling him, "Look, mate, grow a pair of bollocks. You're not in the Phil." Then Stevie, because Phil has been a dick to Stevie the entire time, Stevie gets Big Mo to sell the car to Fat Elvis, or Fat Elvis to sell the car, and then that leads to Stevie leaving the money to Billy, and just like, oh, it was so perfect. The new Mitchells, a lot of people don't really, like the new Mitchells. I don't mind them. I think the only weak one is Teddy. Like, the two kids are great, and Nicola's great. It leads to the introduction of Nicola, and then obviously you get another classic Chris Clenshaw moment, which is Barney dangling off the bridge by Ravi, because he thinks Barney is coercing Ivani into having intercourse, which is not good. And it's just, but yeah, it's just it was a fantastic moment that I love. I'm just the new Mitchells have been good. But it also is very weird because it's kind of a con, but it's also a pro in a sense. Because you're at this weird point thing because you have Phil struggling, and then you kind of like if the shift from the new Mitchells to, don't want to say old Mitchells, but the original Mitchells, and then you get Grant coming in, and Grant's like, Teddy.
They're just completely at odds. It's like it is two different generations, right?
Because you have Teddy. He's like, go away, check on Barney. Then you have Grant be like, hold on, lads, time to unbutton my shirt. I'll be your hero, baby. Runs into the fake, elbows the door.
Save Sharon.
Breaks the banister
by himself.
Yeah, and then just have Teddy go, oh my god, that's wrong. Just like he knew the moment was over. But it's honestly a pro. Like, I love these new Mitchells, and I would love to see more. Could I see them being axed in the next generation of axings?
Well, probably. It's now the time to figure out whether they will actually be made a big part. Like, when a new executive producer takes charge, there's a chance that characters fall out of favor. Like how Ben Mitchell and Whitney were both axed in this. Well, I'm pretty sure Whitney left, but Ben was axed. Like, sometimes the the characters fall out of favor? Will the new Mitchell's potential get truly realized, or will they fall out and then Harry and Barney eventually leave? Like, it's a tale as old as time, and we can't make any real we can't really make any real judgment as to how they'll be used in the future. But that, for me, like the short returns leading into bigger like storyline potential truly was a great mark of the era.
Yeah, and I think also the returns were great, and the overall his arc will go down as one of the better arcs of recent memory of EastEnders, in my humble opinion. People can disagree with that, but compared to the last executive producer there was, it's like night and day. It's basically like going from the DC universe that Zack Snyder had, I think that's his name,
Yes.
to now James Gunn's DC universe. It's like night and day. It's like, obviously I know we haven't seen James Gunn's DC universe yet, but it's like one's going to probably be better than the other. One's going to be more happy. One was more depressing, and so it is nice to see that. And I'm looking forward
probably
to
lead it. Sorry, I can probably just lead into point number 2 though, which kind of follows suit really, is it shifted direction of the show. As we were kind of mentioning in the introduction, before this time, EastEnders was still doing a lot of the crime. It was still doing a lot of the very crime-centric criminal stuff with Phil and Ben both being bad guys, and there being Phil Mitchell needs a new enemy to go against his empire. And we still did get some of this, like Keanu kidnapping his own son. But like fundamentally, it was a much more changed approach. They decided that a lot of the stories were going to be based in family, which I personally, a kind of a callback to original EastEnders, where, the first episode is Lou bollocking Pauline and Arthur for having a baby despite not having a job and not having their own place to raise the fucking child. Like, it was centered as family drama versus like gritty kind of realism, right? But the criminal aspect wasn't necessarily as important as it later would go into a couple years on, as you get the Mitchells, and you go into that 90s period where and then that 2000s period where crime would kind of take over, and it'll be about the gangsters in the square, which had its place in time for sure. But after a really rough couple of years of like Keyball, Ben, Keanu, Phil, back and forth, all of like the different Phil Mitchell enemies that showed up for no reason. Like, at the end of the day, changing it to have the stories more focused within family, and therefore beefing up a lot of the families that were probably quite light on their feet, introducing Penny and Lauren back into the show for the Brannins, re-establishing the Beals, who before Chris Clenshaw was Kathy and Bobby, for fuck's sake. I mean, yeah, but Pete was in and out. But, them holding up the fucking line entirely. You bring back Ian, you bring back Cindy, you bring back Peter. And then, to kind of recapture the magic of the Beale Fowlers originally, you bring in the Knights, which also bolsters Linda, whose family also are all gone. It's just a really, the Mitchells, get some new Mitchells in there. Like, they really did beef up the families, and therefore you had a lot more ways you could go with what they were doing, which really benefited the show, because a lot of people had a lot of good shine during this era. And I think the beefing up the families and the focusing on more family drama rather than crime really benefited Clenshaw. Because ultimately there were still criminal things that were going on, like the Six, like Nish. There were still this stuff going on. But rather than going from it be week to week, it was pretty much like once every few months there would be something unsavory and something criminal. So I think that is a huge positive of this era.
I'd agree. I feel, because if you don't know, really, we're not really fans of the crime era. It is good, but let's just remember the last crime boss we had was Aidan Maguire. And can you hear the crowd? They're going wild. They're going radio red to listen to that. Woo, woo, woo. Yeah, see, they're all excited, all two of you. And that kind of failed.
I mean, there was like Danny Hardcastle. They brought back like Jonah Tyler or Turner or whatever from like 20 years ago. But like even then, so it was like...
Yeah, didn't he make Ben deaf in the show by shooting him in the ear?
Yeah, but I also think that was because of the boat crash and Phil shot a gun near his ear. But yeah.
Continuing on, yeah, it's just crime isn't our flavor. It's not our flavor of the month. For me personally, I like the more normal, down to reality. That sounds weird saying, but then more ground to earth kind of storylines.
Yeah, just it all being like very, very relatable, very grounded, very down to earth, etc.
Yeah,
Exactly like you're saying.
yeah, I know in reality a bathtub's not going to fall on your head, but there's a 1 in 100 chance it does. So I feel like I'm glad the crime is gone, but I'm scared that it might come back. I personally hope it's gone for a good 5-6 years. Bring it back in the next decade, or at the very least at the end of this decade. Just please, because I can't deal with Phil being a crime boss again, or Teddy.
I wouldn't mind a bit of it because we still have had a bit of it. Like Nicola's operating drugs, and Ravi's a dealer, and Nish was a criminal at the same way, and Teddy and Harry torched the Panasar's call center at some point. Like there is still the some bits of crime, and I wouldn't necessarily mind it to come back in some form, but you would have to reinvent how it works. Like you would need the new Mitchells to take it over because we've already established that Phil is not gonna be handling it anymore. Like if you do that, you need to establish a new generation of these gangsters or criminals, and then now we can work with something else because you can't just fall back on Grant and Phil at the end of the day. They're too far gone in terms of characters and what they want to do.
Yeah. What is your Pro 3 for us?
I mean, pro number 3. I mean, you can go a whole other different avenues, I guess. Which way to go? Which way do we pivot though? There's because I mean, 2023 was a year to behold in terms of I still fundamentally believe that 2023 as a year of EastEnders is probably the best full year of EastEnders they've done. Like it was fantastic. Just every the weeks flew by, and there would be so many sleeper weeks where it's like, oh, nothing's going to happen here. Boom, Cindy's back. Whoa, what? And then you feed it in. They had a good way of incorporating the older characters and the regulars with the newer characters and kind of using them to a pretty good effect. They somehow managed to pave the way of losing a lot of kind of very prominent characters of previous times, like Chris Clenshaw had to have Mick Carter leave, Whitney Dean leave, Ben Mitchell leave, and still managed to kind of pave the storm. And now Martin Fowler, but he doesn't really have to deal with that. But still, a lot of these characters still having to leave, and you're still having to produce a really exciting show, even if some of your cast members are leaving. So, and I guess in the same way where we critique the long-term vision, you could also generally see that he did plan out where he wanted things to go. And that's a thing you can't really say about all executive producers, right? I mean, you look at the guy who masterminded the Who Killed Lucy, and they suddenly started getting to the end, and it's like, who did it? Bobby. It's we may detract how some towards the end it may have slightly fallen off, but still it was in a way that it still peaked with a whole load of intrigue with a 40th anniversary. And I think honestly it's kind of I think Chris Clenshaw realized that he had to go before it got bad. I think Chris Clenshaw decided at the right time to leave, and that means that his mark has been left on EastEnders. EastEnders has genuinely, because before this Chris Clenshaw period, and even in 2022, even when he took over, EastEnders was my least favourite soap. And that was someone who started watching EastEnders. But for the last 2 years, EastEnders has been soap number 1, and it's been an absolute no-brainer. The consistency of the show, how interesting, how many different ways it went. Like, Chris Clenshaw has completely overhauled the show, gained a lot more attention, and generally just fully improved on everything that he set out to. May have had some shortcomings, but fundamentally, I still believe that he really did reinvent and revive the show. Because, without him, if we had anybody else, one would have to question, like, how much are people going to sit through? Because the last couple of years were rough before Clenshaw. The last couple of years were a struggle. But, as we've been saying, Chris Clenshaw firmly re-established the show as probably the nation's favourite, and it also helps that, in the meantime, Coronation Street is doing pretty rough. Hollyoaks is trying to rebound, but EastEnders has been consistent.
Yeah, it's just, I don't make this about like all soaps are bad, one soap is good, but we also have to take into account that Hollyoaks is, I'm just going to put it from what I've seen, Hollyoaks has basically been playing Russian roulette, and they shot themselves about 3 times. They only have half the stuff. It's like,
well, Channel 4.
Well, Channel 4
Channel 4.
Yeah.
Hollyoaks has been trying to do its best, and they really have been somehow, like, they've been put in they've been fully untrained in boxing, but they've been put in the ring with Butterbean, and they're just slowly taking cracks to the jaw, and it's like, I'm doing fine, guys. Sorry. Because the amount of times it's like, here we are, Channel 4, you're doing great, Hollyoaks, great stunt week, really good stuff. Oh, God. What was that for? Yeah, we're axing a lot of your work. Great, cheers, guys. Sound. Whoa, what the guys? Another one? Yeah, and it's only gonna be an hour. See ya. Like, whoa. But even then, it still pales in comparison to EastEnders. Like, it's not like EastEnders has been elevated because the rest of the shows haven't been as great. EastEnders has elevated because of its quality and of its work. Like, yes. It's off its own merit.
Just want to say on that Butterbean bit, I really want you now as a TikTok short to put like Hollyoaks on Johnny Knoxville's body, and then just Butterbean as Butterbean in the charity shop where he just absolutely one punches Knoxville.
Yes.
There you go. There's a TikTok for you. If for anyone who's willing to do it, pay me. But it's just the fact that EastEnders, they got the great executive producer at the right time. Because honestly, I'm going to be honest, if 2023 wasn't that good and Watching Walford wasn't at its peak yet, because I like to say we're at our peak kind of now.
Yeah.
Lads, we might not be here. We might have given up and Emma threatened that child. But we're still kicking. And honestly, just to end the point off, EastEnders has rejuvenated me into enjoying soaps. Will I go back and watch Hollyoaks and Coronation Street and Emmerdale and Home and Away and Fair City and Neighbours? Oh no, Neighbours been cancelled. Oh god damn it.
Yeah.
But will I? No, I won't. But I will laugh at Neighbours being cancelled because they got James Bond license. So yeah. But I did enjoy the past 2 years of EastEnders. 2024 was a lot weaker, but you can't always get a perfect sequel.
It's just because 2023's highs were so high that in comparison 2024 is like, I don't know, this may be a really out there thing, but it's like boob envy. If 2023 is like a fully stacked woman, and then 2024 is just looking at 2023 like, what the fuck? How am I even supposed to compete with that, man? It's the most off-pocket analogy I've made in a while.
That should have come from me, not you. That's yours. You can keep that, mate. You can keep that as much as you want. Yeah. Jesus Christ. But yeah.
Am I wrong though?
What tits are you looking at? Are you looking at the birds like?
2023. Uncontested. Monstrous.
Double D's in the front, double D's in the back. But yeah, okay, where do we go from here? We've completely derailed this.
It's just to fully recap though. It's just at the end of the day, this video was to discuss the legacy of Chris Clenshaw. And fundamentally, we can probably speak for both of us by saying he did a very good job. and got out at the right time, leading for some of the damage that was seeping through, some of the cracks that were beginning to form. Well, suddenly you could just papering over them, and there's no problem anymore. Like he's gone, he's out, he's had his 3 years, longer than most executive producers stick around for, and has still managed to keep all of his hair. So he's done a good job at managing to survive and still produce a very good show. He went out with a bang, which, some producers go out with an absolute wet fart.
And yeah, I just want to end it off by saying my favourite episodes that I've loved of the Chris Clenshaw era. I'm gonna just name a couple. I loved the introduction of Stevie Mitchell. I loved the Eddie and George face off, and then the following episodes where they're in court and Eddie's like, "Stick up for me, boy." And also, just to reference it, it's an old reference, but like that video we did last year where we said, "Is Eddie Knight a racist?" And then one guy going, "Just because you mentioned the skin colour doesn't mean he's racist." And it's like, "No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You're missing the point. Please, please." And then obviously the Christmas episode that the Six did. I know I'm going backwards and forwards, but
just picking out episodes out of 3 years. Fine.
And then obviously have Christmas 2023, which is phenomenal. 20 and also Rose Knight's first episode, but also not because of her first episode, but the ending to the previous episode where he plays a kiss for Rose and he just sits on the phone and like, "Hello, Rose, are you there?"
It's so camp. It's so camp. It's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, likewise, I have pretty similar takes. Like, yes, the George and Eddie Knight is absurdly memorable and fantastic. That episode's great. Introduction of Stevie Mitchell. You have Yolande and Patrick's double hander where she tells the truth about Pastor Clayton's assault of her. Just like a love letter to those two characters and how beautifully crafted it was. And most people, and even just as a little side thing, just Phil Mitchell acting, other than at Christmas, been fucking amazing. It's been so good to have Steve McFadden full force, acting the entire year. It's been great. It's been fantastic, and he really has rejuvenated a lot of characters, helped a lot of characters ascend to a higher level, like Suki Panasar, like Denise. Denise is up there now. Denise is verging on being an iconic character. So many characters have been really souped up. Kathy was brought back from the dead to flounder for about 10 years. Maybe not exactly 10 years, but 8, 9. And she did nothing. She did absolutely fuck all. And then suddenly in this era, Kathy is important again because, you've only got so much time left with her at the end of that. She is 70. In terms of episodes though, any we haven't mentioned, Lola's death episode, a really good standalone one. Even the episode where they go to do they go to Blackpool?
They go to Clapton, isn't it?
They go to Clacton, where Jay sings "You look beautiful" or "Wonderful Tonight." Really good, really memorable. Just a lot of really standout episodes that really, and obviously the 6th Christmas episode is my favorite Christmas episode of all time. So
I just want to end off. To me, EastEnders has also rejuvenated the amount of envy characters have for each other. Kathy really hates Cindy. We see it in the live episode. She just absolutely hates Cindy, and obviously our favourite because we brought it up. No one hates our character more than not Debbie. Bloody butchered Brenda hates Reese. When I say she hates Reese, I don't mean in a boo he's bad. I mean when the UK, Ireland and Scotland united to hate Margaret Thatcher. That's the level she hates Reese. That is the level where you get... She just...
Full blown. If Reese was burning and on fire, she wouldn't piss to let him out.
Exactly.
She'd just watch. She'd light up a cigarette off his burning body and just go... just... The amount of piss and venom she has for that man is just unmatched.
And I think just to end it off, some of my favourite moments is Eddie Knight telling George, "I don't love you." Obviously, Reese with the bathtub, our house is being dubbed Bathgate, Obviously, another one that kind of, as we briefly mentioned it, is obviously George playing A Kiss from a Rose, trying to call Rose now. It's, like, a lot of campy moments. Also, like, Martin's death is, to me, it's going to be, I don't want to say iconic, but it will be up there.
It's very impactful.
It's very impactful, yeah. Where he's crushed by the beam, and obviously everybody making the rude joke saying, "You only got a stiffy if you ever get the beam off."
And beam me up. There we are.
Yeah.
A little Star Trek reference. But yeah, and just so many good moments. The amount of good Sharon lines she had in this era. You know, the "get your knickers on, you're having a baby." I don't know why she's northern, but you know, but still, like the amount of good lines they fed Sharon. Kathy becoming a one-liner queen, just despising Cindy till she dies.
Again.
A lot of really funny moments, like bringing back Ian into the fold. He didn't really have the most stuff to do, but he has done enough to actually warrant being there. Like, just so many good. Emma threatening a child, which we'll never forget because it's so absurd. There are like Stevie saying, "I'll show you an elephant" on the stage as he's like unbuckling his trousers.
And my
favorite bit,
my favorite bit is because Steve McFadden never breaks character, but you can tell he broke character because they quickly have to cut away as he's laughing, and it's generally
the moment Big Mo gifts Alfie a penis pump because he can't get it up due to his cancer treatment. Like there are so many. Just some of Teddy's lines are just ridiculous.
It's the Art of War.
Because the Art of War one, like, there's so many good stuff. I mean, I think for two angles, just to wrap this video up, because this has been a long one, but this is kind of first. This has almost been a love letter to Chris Clenshaw in a sense. But before we say that, I'll just first say, what do you think about Chris Clenshaw's era? Do you think it revived the show or killed it? Tell us in the comment section. We'd love to hear what you say. But as a final point, as we enter the final weeks, the final days of Chris Clenshaw's time on the show, I just simply want to thank Chris Clenshaw and the direction that he took EastEnders. It has re-established EastEnders as my favourite soap, which it hadn't held for years. And fundamentally, it's done a lot of really good stuff for the show, and it's maintained it to be very healthy, and it's put it in a really good place. It felt like, a bad couple of years in soap is like a lifetime, because you are sitting through 210 episodes a year. But he managed to recorrect the course, and, EastEnders, in terms of like Coronation Street, Emmerdale, they're getting axed. Well, not getting axed, but like an hour's being axed off their time. Hollyoaks, getting shelved, not shelved, but still struggling. Neighbours, axed. Like, EastEnders has, and probably due to Chris Clenshaw's like progression of keeping the show in a good place, has pretty much held back the wolves, ready to cut anything soap-wise at the doors. So once again, full credit, and Chris Clenshaw will be missed. There was a time period in there where, I was starting to get a bit disenfranchised, especially in this last couple of weeks when the Reese and Sonia stuff picked up ahead of the 40th anniversary. But still, he went off with an absolute bang. So thank you to Chris Clenshaw, and thank you to EastEnders for believing in his vision.